DevSpec is a customizable, intuitive, and feature-rich requirements management tool. It can be used as a standalone system where we track requirements and specifications, or integrated with DevSuite for full traceability, including the linking of test cases and development tasks. In this video, I will show you how requirements are managed and the various features that make this process easier. Let's start with how requirements are represented. In this view, there are two products or projects that are currently tracked. There is no limitation to the number of projects that can be created, and categories are created underneath to better group requirements and specifications. In the list view, there are two types of work items. The items with the green icon represents high-level requirements that are broken down into specs that are more development friendly. There is virtually no limit to how requirements or specs can be linked, especially useful for projects where changing one item may impact another. Let's create a new requirement. In this dialog, we need to clearly define a type. We can also choose to link to another requirement or specification, and fields in red are mandatory fields that must be filled out. The description field is HTML-based and can contain images or simply attach supporting documents. This is a simple interface, but administrators can choose to create as many fields as needed to define the work item. More importantly, we can define which product release we want to include this feature in. Choose an owner responsible for this feature to finish submission. Back in the list view, we can easily find out all features that are included in a release or all features pertaining to a component. This interchangeable view allows for different roles like program managers to see the overall picture or a developer to see features pertaining to a component he is responsible for. It's also a time-saving feature that prevents duplicate requirements to be created. Let's dive into the details of a spec. Up on the top, we have transition buttons that can move this item through the workflow, and when we do this, changes are saved under the History tab. We can also manually or automatically save this draft and possibly roll back to earlier versions of the spec. The Relationship map and the All Links tab allows us to see in a visual way all linked artifacts, useful to determine impact if the spec changes. DevSpec also has other views where we can see if something changes overall. In the baseline view, we can create a baseline for a release or builds so we can compare what's changed. In this example, a baseline for release 1 has already been created. I'm now going to create a baseline for a new release. In the dialog, we are going to make sure we select all requirements and specs for our ITSM application and use the product version tree to select release 2. We can now compare the two baselines. In the list view, any specs that have been changed will appear as a different icon, and under the Differences tab, changes will appear in red. The baseline view is extremely useful to inform your QA teams all that have changed. I'm now going to show you how product owners can plan releases at a high level. In the Roadmap view, we have a board view where we can specify the date range. By default, 3 months are set for each of the boards. Underneath the board are our requirements and specs to be planned. I've built 2 queries on the top so we can plan for either separately. All we have to do now is simply to drag the specs into the appropriate time slot. This concludes our short introductory video. A link to our MS Word add-on for requirements is below. If you'd like to have a personalized environment or have any questions, please don't hesitate to give us a call.